There are some powerful war weapons out in the world, and we like to display many of them on our channel. Weapons are very expensive equipment, but countries often make their defense budget a priority to protect themselves. An example of that is the F-35. The F-35 program has cost the United States an astounding amount of money. However, was it worth it? It surely depends on the effectiveness of the United States' super expensive multi-role fighters in future military actions. Nevertheless, certain weapons have proven more effective than others throughout history. There are many obvious war weapons like spears, swords, bows and arrows, guns, and the atomic bomb. But let's explore other unfamiliar weapons that have been very useful during wartime and attacks throughout history. The first weapon on our list is the bayonet. In 2018, a military website published a piece titled, "How the Bayonet Changed the World." It's simply a sword or dagger fastened to a firearm, but in the past, this weapon changed the outcome of battles. The first bayonets may have come from Bayonne, a French city. Today, they remain in use worldwide, used as a stab weapon. The blades can be removed and used as survival knives. Their greatest value, however, was in the past. When soldiers reloaded or prepared their muskets, the blade ensured they had a strong defensive weapon, as the firearms weren't automatic. It gave them a huge advantage if the other side didn't have bayonets. In 1746, when the Scottish Jacobites were outnumbered by the British Redcoats, the bayonets may have been the most important weapon in the battle. It's true that bayonets are now more of a multi-purpose tool, but they were once an ace in the hole when it came to combat if you had them, along with training. Next is the hand grenade. The earliest known types of grenades date back to the 15th century. There were also things like a round shell with a fuse on it that you might have seen Looney Tunes characters use, although Wile E. Coyote never managed to use them right. The French were the first to use them, and they had throwers called grenadiers. In the First World War, armies packed gunpowder into cans filled with stones or metal and then used them during battles. This method was ineffective, often resulting in the deaths of the makers. A race was on to develop a grenade that would be easy to throw while being safe. British grenades in 1915 were egg-shaped with a lever and pin. However, the Germans already had the stick bomb by the time this Mills bomb was developed. It seems that the stick bomb had the advantage of being able to be thrown further, but had less power. These little bombs became indispensable very quickly. And now for the cannon. The Chinese in their glory days developed several inventions which haven't been credited to them, according to historians, but they are credited for inventing cannons in either the 12th or 13th century, where gunpowder was used to fire objects over long distances. There was no question that this method was faster and more destructive than hurling stones from large catapults. Although historians are unsure of exactly when the first European cannons appeared, a picture of one dates back to 1326, a year before the 100 Years' War, when the English began using them. According to a Florentine historian, the English and Welsh easily defeated their opponents in the Battle of Crecy between 1345 and 1346, striking men down largely with cannonballs. English peasants were able to defeat French knights during that battle with this new effective weapon. However, the English weren't the only ones. Cannons were also being used by armies from places like the Middle East and parts of Asia outside of China. Next is RPGs. On the topic of thrown bombs, we should also mention rocket-propelled grenades. According to Gizmodo, the Soviets first created these devices to attack tanks. While anti-tank guns existed, there was a need for something better. In addition to being powerful, it had to be something that soldiers could easily move on their backs or with their hands. As early as 1940, the Soviet Union developed the RPG-40, which was an early version of the weapon we use today. It was called the bazooka by Americans, and was called the Panzerfaust by the Germans. The Soviets mastered the RPG in the years following. Next on the list is tanks. We talked about blowing them up, but now let's talk about the first tanks. Who came up with the idea for this armored fighting vehicle? Apparently, this indestructible machine was invented by the British and used for the first time at the Flers-Courcelette battle on September 12, 1916. The Brits used the word tank to conceal what they were developing because they didn't want people to know what they were accomplishing. During World War II, This would make the enemy think they were building giant tanks of water to replenish soldiers. These tanks were called Mark Is and were slow and unreliable. Only 25 out of 49 advanced in that battle. Nonetheless, it proved to be a formidable opponent. French Renault FT light tanks were soon in use, while the Germans developed their own beasts on Caterpillar tracks. The next weapon is the Gatling gun. In Wild West movies, you've probably seen a sheet pulled off from the back of a cart with a Gatling gun on it. Back then, it was like pulling out a lightsaber. The movie characters are then all quickly annihilated. Richard Gatling invented the Gatling gun, and in 1862 it was used for the first time. This is considered the first type of machine gun. It was used in the American Civil War as well as to take down Native American tribes. As typical of the United States, it was widely exported. During the Battle of Tacna in 1880, the Peruvians used it to surprise and kill the Chileans. The Brits used it against spear-wielding Zulus in Africa, and Imperial Russia used it to cut up Turkmen. The final, most effective weapon listed here is the drone. These unmanned military aircraft that are used for attacking or spying are the biggest game changers on the list. Some people find it unethical to shoot people from the air in a foreign country while the operator is in a control room. Others argue they save lives. The ethical question is whether killing should be done in an environment similar to a video game. Recent concerns were expressed by Google employees about Project Maven, a project that the company assisted the Pentagon with, in which drone footage was processed using artificial intelligence. What is the origin of modern warfare weapons like drones? February 4th, 2002 was the first time the CIA used a modern killer drone, known as a Predator drone. Osama bin Laden was targeted by a Hellfire missile. But back in World War I, the US Navy had unmanned air torpedoes, although they were far less advanced than today's drones in terms of capability. Between the 1950s and the 1970s, drones continued to be used and tested. Everything changed with the advent of computer technology. Pentagon drones are estimated to number around 7,000 today. Virtual reality may soon replace the two-dimensional screen as the primary way of piloting these drones. Surely more advanced machines that can move and shoot using machine learning and artificial intelligence will be developed soon. Maybe one of these machines will be able to move like humans or animals like those featured in the dystopian TV show, Black Mirror. Which war weapon do you think was the most successful in the history of war? Have you seen or operated one of these weapons in person? What do you think? Make sure to subscribe to the channel, folks, for more videos.